Hello and welcome to the Talk Tirade with Stabler and Friends. Today we are focusing primarily on the first round of the NFL Draft, airing this Thursday, April 24th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time on ABC, ESPN, and the NFL Network. I'm your host, Stabler, and allow me to reintroduce a friend of the program and our NFL expert, Mike Middleton. Mike and I have been doing this special for a few years now, and if you haven't listened to Mike's mock draft in the past, you're in for a treat. He's studied the ins and outs of tapes of the NFL prospects and fits each team with the best player possible. On top of that, Mike is 2 for 2, getting more correct picks than the so-called experts at ESPN. So let me introduce to you guys Mike Middleton. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. How's it going?
Doing good. Just finishing up with work for the day and then catching up on the last-minute sports news, seeing the Gronk trade.
Yeah, that's crazy. Is that going to change your picks or anything at all right now?
No, I don't have
really
any tight ends.
Yeah,
no tight ends in the first round this year, so it really doesn't change anything.
Yeah, I just got that. Do you think the Patriots got what they deserved out of that trade, or should they have fought for more?
I don't think they had a lot of leverage. It was basically trade him to the team that he wants to play for, or he doesn't come back out of retirement and they get nothing.
Right,
so,
yeah. That makes sense.
Kind of that way. So it was easier they're going to stay retired or go to Tampa. So
yeah,
not bad getting a 4th round pick for that, I guess.
Yeah, so we're recording. It's Tuesday afternoon, so I mean things could change in the next 2 days, but hopefully we're up to date, and maybe if anything changes, we can throw it out on the page. Just some typing of what changes have been made and where we think things will go. Okay. What we're going to do is we're just going to go straight down the first round of the draft in order. Mike is going to give us his thoughts on which team will draft who. He will give us a comparable player that's in the pros or has been in the pros, as well as giving us analysis on each athlete he believes will be drafted in the first round. So should we go with the most obvious pick first? Let's just start at the top. Cincinnati Bengals on the clock at number 1.
Sounds good. So it will be a massive shock if it's anything other than Joe Burrow. They obviously need a quarterback. He's the top one in the draft. He just put together one of the best seasons in the history of college football. The biggest translatable stat from college to the pros when it comes to a quarterback is accuracy. Like if you're not accurate in college, you're not just going to suddenly become accurate in the NFL. But if you're really good at accuracy in college, that translates. And he's got elite accuracy. The biggest concern with him is kind of the one-year wonder. He kind of came out of nowhere. He was considered like a late round pick coming into the year, and now all of a sudden he's number 1 overall. But the stuff that he improved on is, like I said, that's the translatable stuff. So it's not a huge concern. He sees the game well. He's smart. He doesn't have a great arm, but he doesn't necessarily need a great arm because he anticipates well and he's an accurate thrower.
Cool. Who's your pro comparison?
So the best pro comparison, I think, is Tony Romo. So he's got a little bit of athleticism to him, but he's still mostly a pocket guy. But I think that's probably the best comp.
Okay, cool. If you had to predict, what would you say? Where would you say like his talent level? What's his ceiling?
So I think that he could potentially be. It's hard to say because of the career that he's had, but I want to say not quite a Drew Brees level, but I can see him being in a Drew Brees type role. If you get him in the right offense, he can be a perennial all-pro kind of guy. Very, very accurate with the ball, and that lasts a long time in the NFL.
Yeah. Man, that was a hell of a season he had last year. Yeah. But, I mean, everything was tank for Tua. I think Tua's shown more years of consistency other than injury, and I don't know. I was watching that Jordan documentary the other day, and they're like, there's a 10% chance your foot could get broken again, and you'll never play again. But there's a 90% chance that it doesn't. I think I would take the risk on whoever I think's more talented, But
yeah, and I would agree with you. Part of this mock is saying, this is what's going to happen. It's not necessarily saying what I would do. I would take Tua over Joe Burrow. I think he's a better player when he's healthy. And if you're not super concerned about the hip, I think he's the best quarterback.
Cool. Yeah.
He's done it for longer. So I think you know what you're getting with Tua.
Yeah, and Burrow's just more the safe pick and coming off a hot year, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
cool. Now we go to what is seems like the biggest mess to me in the NFL, the Washington Redskins.
Yeah,
I'd put
yeah,
them, the Texans, and the Jaguars all kind of in the same
yeah. That's
no direction. So what do
yeah,
the
that's tricky.
Redskins do?
So there's a lot of reports out that they might trade out of the pick, but I mean, you'd have to give up a lot to get that number 2 pick. I think it's pretty much a slam dunk that Chase Young is going to be the pick there. One of the best edge prospects in recent memory. I really think he's going to be, the Khalil Mack, Von Miller, J.J. Watt, that top
Wow.
tier of guys in the NFL. He's the best player in the draft, regardless of position. So, he's obviously not going 1 because there's a quarterback premium. But I would take him over, Myles Garrett or the Bosa's for the last few years. Like this is
Oh
the
wow.
top guy that's come out in the last 5 years for sure.
Man, that's a bold statement right there. That's
Yeah, yeah, he's that good.
yeah. I saw. Yeah, you said you compared him to like Khalil Mack and Aldon Smith is on there. Maybe the Bears should trade up and then just have the best
Yep,
linebacker core of all time.
right. Yeah, I think that's what I put for his pro comp is like an Aldon Smith, and Khalil
Yeah.
Mack. Aldon Smith back when he was actually good and not destroying his life off the field. So
I was gonna say if they were to trade, who would be trading up for Chase Young?
uh, yeah, that's really interesting because you're going to have to give up so much capital. And I think if someone's trading up to 2, they're not trading up to draft Chase Young. They're trying to get a quarterback. So if someone wanted like Tua, for instance, and they're worried that Miami was going to take him at 5 or that Miami was going to try to trade up with Detroit, then you would
Mm-hmm.
trade up to 2 to try to beat Miami. So I think San Diego would maybe be the team that would trade up to 2 if they're trying to get ahead of Miami. So,
Well, I hope that's I don't know what case scenario I'm hoping for the Dolphins, but let's move
well,
on down to number 3 with the Detroit Lions on the clock.
there we go. So Jeff Okudah, I think, is easily the pick here. He's the best corner in the class. Um, his entire time at Ohio State, I think he had like 850 or 860 coverage snaps, gave up a total of 2 touchdowns the entire time. He's a lockdown guy. He's scheme versatile, extremely good, man cover corner, high floor, high ceiling. It's just piece of cake that this is what they'll do if they keep the pick.
He's so unbelievable, man. I watched I think it was earlier in the season versus Nebraska, and he had like I think he already had an interception and a forced fumble and maybe a sack or 2 like in the
Right.
first quarter. Like
Yeah.
he was all over the field. He's amazing. So yeah, when everybody started saying that Chase Young was the guy, I'm like, man, I thought Okuda was the dude. Like he's all over the field. So I think they're both great, and it hurts me to say that, not being an Ohio State fan very much, but
Yeah, that's kind of what's nuts here is that you've got um, Chase Young, who I think is the best edge guy that's come out in 5-10 years. Okuda's in that same conversation as one of the best corners that's come out during that period of time. Played on the same defense, like that's ridiculous.
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, any other thoughts for the Lions?
I mean, if you're really looking at life after Matt Stafford, then again, this is a spot you could maybe roll the dice on a Tua, but I
Yeah,
think Okuda's such a safe bet that that's the way they're going to go.
right. Yeah, I was wondering if they would possibly trade down with the Chargers or the Dolphins, whoever needs to
Mhm.
move up, and then still get Okuda probably right in the same or a few
Yeah, and
spots later.
that's very possible as far as like if it's Miami that wants
Mm-hmm.
to move up. Um, I don't think that the Giants are going to take Okuda. I think they're going to take a tackle most likely. And
Yeah.
so in that situation, if Miami's willing to give it up, yeah, you take the pick and then still get your guy. Um, if they fell all the way back to 6, maybe Miami still takes Herbert at 5. I'm not a big Herbert guy. We'll get into that,
Yeah,
but you potentially risk Miami taking Okuda at 5 if you move back to 6.
I gotcha. So what do you have the Giants taking it for?
So at 4, I got them going Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle from Alabama. So he played mostly right tackle for them, but I think he's got the athleticism that he can play on either side. Um, they spent a lot of money on Nate Solder, and that didn't work so well. And I think that you're investing in Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. You've got to protect that offense. You've got to protect your quarterback. You've got to open up holes for the run game. So there's a lot of talk about Isaiah Simmons going here, but I think it's going to be a tackle.
Okay. Talk to me about the offensive linemen in this draft. I don't know how good any of them are, but I noticed that there's a lot going in the first round. But I know a lot of the times that offensive linemen are overvalued because if you get a good one, then you're set for quite some time.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting class because there's 4 guys that are considered the top tier. And depending on which analyst you're reading or who you talk to, they have them in a different order. So there's not like a clear-cut consensus like, oh, this is Joe Thomas or this is, Jonathan Ogden or whoever. So those 4 guys are considered the locks to be first-round guys. But there's good depth in the tackles moving forward in the draft of just like decent to good, potentially high upside. But if you really want more of a, like this could be a Pro Bowl type guy, you want to get one of those top 4 guys. So those are the ones that are going to come off first, but it's really what you prefer as far as what order that they go.
Okay, cool. Now who would be your number one that you believe is the best? Is that who you just said from Bama?
Yeah, I think Jedrick Wills could potentially end up being the best. There's another one I'll mention later, Mekhi Becton, that if he hits his peak, he could end up getting there. But he's got more stuff he needs to clean up as compared to Wills. I think Wills is going to be the one that can go in and contribute right away and have a really long, productive career.
Okay, cool. So now we're to my Miami Dolphins. We got 3 first-round picks. How we gonna turn this around?
All right. So there's a lot of buzz and has been for a few weeks that the Dolphins really like Justin Herbert and that they like him more than Tua. I got to think that that's smokescreen, hoping that the Chargers don't try to trade up in front of them to draft him, because I don't understand how you could take that route watching the 2 guys play. So I got Tua as the pick here. Elite accuracy, decision-making, and pocket presence. He's a strong leader. He's a winner, high-character guy, very consistent. So really the only thing that you're worried about with him is the hip. And if the medicals are coming back good on that, you got to take Tua. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but he makes up for it, and he's elite in all the areas that really matter. And like I said earlier, I'd honestly take him over Joe Burrow if I had the number 1 pick in the draft and needed a quarterback. So I got a little stat here that I'll mention. So I said earlier that, accuracy is the thing that really translates from college to the pros when you're looking at quarterbacks. In 2019, wide open receivers that were 5 to 18 yards down the field. So this is your intermediate passing game. 4.3% of Tua's passes were deemed uncatchable by the receiver. Compare that to 18.1% for Justin Herbert.
Yikes. I'm looking at this list you have here too, and it also mentions Jalen Hurts was only 5%.
5%. Joe Burrow, 5.1%. Jordan Love at 14.1. So you see Love and Herbert are those are the traits guys. They got size, they got arm strength, they're athletic, but it's really spotty accuracy. And you don't suddenly fix that by moving from college to the pros. It's, the windows get tighter. You're not going to have wide open receivers. And like this is for open receivers. This isn't covered. If you're missing
so it's
18%,
even worse.
like that's really bad. Justin Herbert has a habit of being late on his throws. So he waits till he sees it, and then by the time he makes the throw, in the pros, those go back the other way. Like you've got to throw it before. You can't be late. So, Tua has that in the bag. I would not trust Justin Herbert with a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I honestly, man, I'm going to be so disappointed if we've spent this long building up the next 2 years of draft picks in a rebuild mode to settle for Justin Herbert. Like I thought if somebody got Herbert later in the first round, like that would be a steal, but getting him there, I don't want that. I'd rather get somebody who's a sure thing at this point and maybe pass on quarterback this year if Tua's not available, Tua and Burrow. And then later you can get Love if he's available, or Herbert might even slip. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, I was so excited all year long. Like, okay, we're going to find a couple players that want to be here that are going to progress, like Devontae Parker, Baker, all those guys, people that you can
Yeah.
rely on, build that little core. And now we have a slew of draft picks, build up a good team. And then next year we got another grip of draft picks. That's when you start moving. So if Tua's not available, I really hope that they just go with sure things, maybe get some solid wide receivers that are from this draft, some good offensive linemen, things like that. But I'm going to be heartbroken if Justin Herbert is our first overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, if I were to compare this draft class with the last one, I would put Herbert behind Drew Lock probably. And you look at Drew Lock was a guy that was talked about as maybe he's a top 10 guy, but maybe that's a little high for him. Denver ends up getting him in the middle of the second round. If Herbert is sliding, like you said, he's in the 20s or right around that turn, that's good value for him because you're going to let him sit at least a year behind Fitzpatrick, if not two. And then maybe he's something in the future. But this high, I mean, that's such a gamble for someone who a lot of the times does not look like he can play quarterback. So.
Yeah. So we were talking about Tua being drafted by the Dolphins. Now then we kind of shifted over to Justin Herbert, and that's who you believe the Chargers are going to draft at 6. Is that right?
Yeah. So, and again, it's a matter of if you need a quarterback after Tua and Joe Burrow are off the board, Justin Herbert's the next best guy. And so, again, I personally am not going to take him at 6, but I don't know how long the Chargers can go with just Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. I think he can be a really good bridge guy, but you want to get someone there developing. And so
we saw that with Baker. We saw that with Baker Mayfield a couple of years ago.
So size, athleticism, an elite arm, which is great, has very nice tools. He just doesn't know how to use them yet. And so he's got to get in with a really good head coach and offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. His accuracy, very inconsistent. Like I said, even when he's thrown into an open receiver in the intermediate, those are your money throws. You should be able to make those. Like I said, he can be late on his throws. So I think he could go into a system where they already have a decent starter and they're not going to ask him to start year 1 at minimum. So maybe that's San Diego.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm just surprised. I don't know. It seems like a desperate move for San Diego to me. Or I guess we should start calling them Los Angeles.
Right. I think they're a desperate team. I mean, no one shows up to their games. And, invest a first-round pick in a quarterback. It generally will buy your head coach an extra year or two because you can say, oh, well, we're rebuilding, we're developing,
Yeah, I guess that's all true. I just see like Cam Newton still available, and if you want to reach, I mean, I don't know. I'd rather have Jameis Winston than Herbert, and like hope that he can fix his issues. But that seems like
I would
desperate.
have Newton and Winston both over Herbert for sure, no matter who my team was.
Yeah, that just seems kind of like a desperation to me. But on to number 7, the Carolina Panthers on the clock.
All right, so I have them taking Isaiah Simmons. I don't even know what to call him other than a defensive player for Clemson. If you look at the way that they used him, it was split. He played free safety. He played outside corner. He played slot corner. He played linebacker. They played him on the line a little bit coming off the edge. You can literally line him up anywhere, but technically he's like a linebacker, but he's not your traditional NFL linebacker that you want, just trying to plug through between a guard and go, stop the run. So you got to get him in the right system where they're moving him around and utilizing his athleticism, but he's a defensive weapon. He's going to be a very good player in the right system.
Now, would he be better off used as like, you know how whenever there's an elite tight end, like let's say a Gronkowski or a Kelsey, somebody who's too big and fast for too big for the safeties, too fast for the linebackers, would this
Right.
guy be the fit to be the tight end giant killer, basically?
Absolutely, because he's got the size and strength to be able to deal with a Gronk, someone big like that. But he's also got that 4.3 speed that he can run with the Travis Kelce's and the really fast guys. So he's a matchup nightmare. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a very good coverage player, very good instincts. He got a lot of interceptions in college, even playing as a linebacker. So that's absolutely a way to use him. But he's also a very good pass rusher. So being able to, line him up like he's going to guard the tight end and then rush him off the edge, he's going to make plays. So that's why I
Man,
say
that
how you
just seems
scheme
like a
him.
perfect weapon for the right system, you know?
Absolutely. And it's a pass happy NFL right now. And so he's ideal. He's an ideal chess piece for a defensive coordinator to go up against a Kansas City or a San Francisco and those high powered passing attacks.
Yeah, for sure. Panthers. Something happened with the Carolina Panthers the other day, and I can't remember. Never mind. Cardinals at number 8.
All right, so here's another one of those offensive tackles. I have him taking Tristan Wirfs here. Freaky athlete. I mean, it's ridiculous how fast and how high he can jump and how well he can move at the size that he is. He played both tackle positions at Iowa, so you can put him on the left side, you can put him on the right side. His arms are they meet the threshold, but they're not super long. So some people said, well, maybe he'll be better kicking inside to guard. As a guard with his size and strength and mobility, like he could be an all-pro. But tackle being the higher value position, you probably want to try him there first, see how he does before you try to kick him in. I think he'll still be a very good tackle. With the Cardinals, they've got a young, exciting, explosive offense, and this is another one of those pieces of protect them, open up the holes, and give time to Kyler.
Yeah. Who's their coach? I can't remember.
It is
Steve
Kingsbury.
Wilkes. Oh,
Wasn't it Cliff Kingsbury?
this one. Oh, yeah, probably.
Because he came in and drafted Kyler when they still had Josh Rosen, I'm pretty sure.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it is. You're right.
Oh.
So, do you think he's a good coach?
I think so. There's always a little bit of a question when a college guy comes in. How gimmicky is his scheme going to be? Because it's doing a college scheme in the NFL. Is he going to be Chip Kelly or is it But I think that it seems like it's going to work out so far. And they're loaded. They've got fantastic receivers and
right
weapons. So
yeah, they're going to be. I don't know. They're kind of my question team this year. I don't know if they're going to be really good or just disappoint.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a sour taste still from Vance Joseph. He's their defensive coordinator. So all I can say is, so long as the Cardinals don't play against an elite tight end or even a decent tight end, then they'll be okay. But otherwise, they can't stop a tight end.
Did you hear DeAndre Hopkins the other day? They were asking him oh, what's it going to be like? You were taking passes from Deshaun Watson, and now you're going to have to go to Kyler Murray, who's still trying to get his grippings in the NFL. And he's like, man, I caught balls from Brock Osweiler. I can catch balls from anybody.
Yep. And that's true. Very true.
Yeah.
So, yep, Hop will be just fine.
For sure. Next on the clock, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
All right, so this is a bad team. They've got holes all over the place. A couple years ago, they had one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they've basically lost just about everybody. Calais Campbell's gone. Marcel Darius is gone. They're trying to trade Yannick. So that defensive line is not good. So they got Josh Allen last year, and he's great, but they need some talent in the middle of the line. So I think they'll go with Derek Brown. He's been kind of considered the top interior defensive lineman in the draft. I personally like Javon Kinlaw a little bit more because he has more pass rush ability, and I think you need to be able to do both. But with Derek Brown, you know what you're getting. I mean, might frankly be the strongest player in college football. He can push the pocket, and he's going to stop the run, but he's going to have to work on developing the pass rush repertoire at the NFL level.
And number 10. So we're rounding off the top 10 with the Cleveland Browns. I don't think they imagine they'd be in this spot again in the
Yeah,
top 10.
yeah. They need a tackle. There's some rumors that they might try to make a move for Trent Williams from Washington,
Oh, yeah.
which, depending on what the compensation, I don't think you want to give up a first rounder, but if you can give up a second or third rounder, then you're still going to have to pay him, 15, 16 million a year. But short of them doing that, I think they take an offensive tackle at 10.
Okay, cool.
The guy I have him going with is Andrew Thomas. So again, depending on who you listen to, some people will have him as the number 1 or number 2 tackle. Some people will have him as like the 6th or 7th. But he's been super consistent, and the Georgia offensive line has just been dominant the whole time that he's been there. He's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of sound technical aspects. He'll be a dominant run blocker as soon as he comes in. He needs some work in his pass block sets. And so that's the only thing is depending on what offensive scheme you're running, you don't necessarily want him like in a zone scheme where he's having to move around a little bit more. And so that, like I said, just kind of depends on what you're looking for in a tackle. But, a couple of months ago, he was considered by everyone as the number 1 tackle in the draft. And he's kind of slipped a little bit through some other people just testing incredible, but very steady player. So I think it's still a good fit here.
So has the COVID shutdown really affected his draft stock probably too, where they can't?
Yeah, I think it would have benefited him to have a pro day.
Mm-hmm.
Let some coaches get in there and test him on some of their stuff and see how his agility is, on if he can get out and move, block, and get to the second level a little bit better than what he showed on tape. But yeah, I think he's one of the guys that has fallen a little bit.
Cool. And now we're on to the Jets, my rival. And you mentioned that this guy had some weaknesses earlier.
Yeah, so this is Mekhi Becton for the Jets. This is a 350-pound guy that blew up the combine. Like he can run, he can move, he's agile. There's a lot of really impressive characteristics to him. He's strong, but at the same time, he was in a scheme at Louisville that really protected his weaknesses, and he needs a lot of refinement. So he needs more coaching and development than the first 3 guys that I mentioned. But if he hits his peak, he could potentially be the best of the bunch.
So does that round off the 4? That's all 4, right, of the linemen?
Yeah, so we got Thomas, Becton, Wirfs, and Wills. So that's the top 4 guys.
So it's quite a drop off after that, huh?
Yes, I believe so.
Cool. And now the Raiders, they got 2 picks in the first round, I believe, right?
They do, yeah.
So they're up right now with number 12 on the clock.
Yeah, and I don't even want to say what this one is because I don't want this to happen, but I have them taking Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver, Alabama.
Judy.
Yeah, to me, this is the next AB, OBJ, just a fantastic route runner, great quickness. This receiver group is really interesting because I really look at it as like 1A, 1B, and 1C, and it just depends on what you like. So Jeudy is the best route runner in the bunch, but he's not as fast as Ruggs. He doesn't have the ball skills that CeeDee Lamb has. He's not as physically imposing. CeeDee Lamb's your yak guy. You get the ball in his hands, and then no one can take him down. He's just ridiculous with the ball in his hands. Ruggs can outrun everybody. But Jeudy is just so well-rounded and so polished, and he's a clinic. Like, just put on his tape and watch him. I mean, he's breaking ankles out there with the routes that he's running, making guys look stupid. So it's going to translate to the NFL. He's got to get bigger. NFL corners are big and strong, and they like to press you at the line of scrimmage. He's got to be able to evade that. He'll get away with some of that with his quickness and his route running. Also, of the 3 receivers, he has the biggest issue with drops. So that's something he'll have to clean up a little bit. But that's nitpicking because he's fantastic. He's a top 10 talent in the draft. He falls a little bit because quarterback and offensive tackle premium, and it's a deep receiver class. But it's a killer pick for the Raiders if they can get him at 12.
Yeah. And it looks like the next few picks, aside from the Bucks, are probably all in need of wide receivers in this little bunch, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So let's move on to number 13, the 49ers. They traded who did they trade to the Colts? Linebacker?
Defensive line, DeForest Buckner.
That's right, Buckner.
Yeah.
I really liked him. So why would they make that kind of a trade? Like, what are they looking for?
So they've got some depth on the defensive line. They've drafted a lot of defensive linemen. They had Armstead and Bosa, and so they already have some guys there. So they felt that it was a position of strength. I think that they really wanted a receiver, and moving up, this is the right range for it. They lost Emmanuel Sanders to free agency, and they want to keep building up that offense around Garoppolo. So I have them taking CeeDee Lamb. So this is my DeAndre Hopkins clone, basically, in this draft. He's the after the catch guy. You get the ball in his hands, and he just makes things happen. And the Niners drafted a guy like that last year in Deebo Samuel. And between Samuel and George Kittle and then CeeDee Lamb, it's going to be one of those offenses that, short and intermediate, you get the ball to the receivers, and then they take it for long gains. And it's going to be a really exciting offense to watch.
Do you think he's a better fit for the Niners than Henry Ruggs would be, like adding speed to the other side of it? Or
it's tough. I think that either one fits. And I know that I read a story today that Henry Ruggs did an interview, and he said that the teams that have been contacting him the most are the Raiders, the Niners, and the Broncos. Those are the ones showing the most interest in him. So I could see him going to any of them. So it's just kind of a matter of CeeDee was probably my number one receiver in this draft, just because stylistically I like his play a little bit more.
Yeah.
But again, it's just kind of your preference, and I could see them going for any of those three. And if the Raiders were to take Judy, then maybe Judy's the pick here, and they could really go in any order.
Yeah, I know. I've watched them all, a bunch of their highlights. I watched them all season last year, and
yeah,
I'm a Judy guy. I don't know. I think CeeDee Lamb, when I watched him, he looks like he has a little bit more talent, but I don't know. I've listened to him in interviews, man, and a lot of the times, like those kind of personalities, they don't really correlate in the NFL. They kind of scare me.
Yeah.
So that kind of turned me off of him.
One of the things with CeeDee, as far as what he's going to have to maybe get better at, he doesn't have the speed that Judy or Ruggs has. He's a 4.5 guy. Judy's a 4.4 guy. Ruggs is a 4.2 guy. So he's got to beat you in other ways. And one of the problems is he was a great contested catch guy in college. But when you see that, you have to wonder, like, why was he in so many contested catch situations? Is he not getting separation? Because if you're having contested catches in college, it only gets harder in the NFL. So he's going to have to prove he can separate. And he wasn't going against the same level of defenses that those SEC guys were going against either. So that's kind of his hurdle that he's going to have to prove. But I still think when this draft is looked back on in 3-4 years, these three receivers are going to be like top 10, 15 receivers in the NFL. They're really good.
Nice. I know. I love when these drafts come along where it's like just a plethora of one position of like high talent, where it's like you watch them and just see them progress as their careers go on, which ones fall off, which ones excel. You know what I mean? Like this is really fun.
Really.
Let's move on. Tom Terrific just got Rob Gronkowski as well today, as we mentioned earlier.
He did,
yeah. What else does Tom need to help the Bucks?
Yeah, so I originally thought this is a great spot for an offensive tackle because you want to build up that line and make sure that Brady has time. He can cover up some of your weaknesses on the offensive line because he gets rid of the ball so fast. But the top four guys are gone. So what do you do? I think that they go just for the best player left on the board, which I think is Javon Kinlaw, interior defensive line. Kind of a pro comp, Calais Campbell, Cam Hayward, big guy, dominant against the run, really good against the pass as well. I think he's probably actually going to end up being better than Derek Brown, who I think will get drafted before him, but he'll have the better career.
Okay. Now let's get to what you've been wanting to get to. And you've been
Yeah.
talking about this guy since college last year. You wanted him at the Broncos, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, we'll address this a little bit at the end when we're kind of talking about trades, but I think there's a chance Denver moves up somewhere to maybe take this guy. But I have him taking Henry Ruggs, wide receiver, Alabama. So this has been my draft crush for this whole season, pretty much. I find a few guys that just really stand out to me, and he's been that guy for me. So incredibly fast. I think he's, you look at the way that a Deshaun Jackson or a Tyreek Hill impacts a game, and it's not only do you have to try to find people that can run with them, but you have to change the whole way that you cover an offense, because if you're one-on-one, you're going to get toasted because, again, not many guys can run with him. So you've got to put safety help over it, which then opens things up for your other guys. So like with Denver, you get a Henry Ruggs, all of a sudden you're getting one-on-one matchups for Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant, and they're going to feast like that. This is the ideal scheme fit, team fit for Henry Ruggs.
You'd be okay. Would you be okay with them trading up if they felt that they needed to get him?
I would. So they've got 3 third-round picks, and so if you have to send one of those and then maybe like a third and a fifth, or a third and then a 2021 fourth, or something like that, that kind of gets you around the 10 range.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you want to draft Ruggs or any of those big 3 receivers, I think you want to probably get to 10, because there's a chance the Jets take a receiver, and then as we showed here, Raiders, 49ers, that receivers are going to come off the board. So if you want to make sure you get the guy that you want, I think 10 is the target.
It's funny. What was funny to me is when you mentioned Ruggs said who was showing the most interest in him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't mention the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought that they might be a team that's trying to get up there, but if they're not even like teasing the idea or like reaching out to him that much, then I wonder.
Yeah, and
what their plan is, but
they definitely need a receiver, and I have them doing that later in the draft. But it's a big move up from the 20s to get to where you would need to take one of these guys. So they really have to love a guy, because you're giving up a lot to move up that far.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're almost halfway through. Number 16, we got the Falcons.
All right. They definitely need a corner, and I don't think they're going to be able to move up enough to get Okudah. So your next best guy is going to be C.J. Henderson from Florida. So I think he's the second best cover corner in the class. He fits in the man scheme, fills a big need. He's a guy who could go in the top 10, and it may be a situation where the Falcons have to trade up into the top 10 to get him. But I think this is the guy that they're targeting on draft day.
Okay. Let's see. Cowboys. Probably have a lot of Cowboys fans listening in. So are they going to be excited with what lands with it to them, or?
I think that they're going to be maybe a little disappointed that the guy that they wanted just went off the board 1 pick before them. And so I think they would then look for the next best corner. They lost Byron Jones in free agency, which is a big loss. I don't know if the average fan realizes how good Byron Jones is, because he didn't make a lot of splash plays of interceptions and things like that. But he was extremely, extremely good the last couple seasons. A lot of pass breakups, a lot of forced incompletions. So even though he wasn't intercepting the ball, he was just shutting people down. And
I'm excited to watch him this year.
Yeah, so I have him taking Christian Fulton, cornerback from LSU. If anyone watched LSU last year and was, Greedy Williams was kind of the big name, Christian Fulton was playing on the opposite side of Greedy and was the way better player. So he's put together 2 really solid seasons there, and I think he'd be a good fit here.
Remember last year how I couldn't believe that Greedy Williams was slipping, and I was just like, he's so good. I can't believe this. Yeah. And then the Browns got him that late. I was like, what a steal. That guy, dude, was burnt every single play last year. Made arm tackles, couldn't even tackle a guy. And when he did stop somebody from catching the ball, a flag was thrown for pass interference on him. Like, what a disappointment.
if you're going to be as allergic to tackling as Greedy Williams is, you better be able to cover like Dion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and he couldn't do either. And it
you know,
just, I think he lost single-handedly lost about 2 or 3 games for the Browns last season,
yeah,
just from some weak ass tackles.
yeah.
So
And, hopefully he gets better over time. I mean, there is talent there for sure, but he's got some big weaknesses.
yeah, for sure. Now we're back to my Dolphins' second pick at number 18 overall.
So I think that offensive tackle makes sense in this range. I think Miami would love for one of those top 4 guys to still be available, but
Yeah,
again, I have them gone. So I have him taking Josh Jones from Houston. So this was a guy who completely dominated his level of competition, but he was playing at Houston. And so you got to kind of look at that. Um, Again, as we go through here, these tackles now, they're toolsy. They've got all these traits, but they're going to need work. So you're projecting this is what they could become. So they're going to need some work on technique and level of competition jump up. But I think Josh Jones is the best tackle left at this point, and he's first round talent.
yeah, I'd be happy with that. I think, like you said, if another lineman of the top tier would drop down. Another thing I was kind of thinking about was if those quarterbacks, the 2 quarterbacks, go 1 and 4 or 3, something like that, the Dolphins get one of those tier 1 linemen. And you know what? If there's
Right.
another one at this point, get a second one. Like, we need all the help at line that we can get. So
Yeah, or even a situation where if, as you were saying, Herbert were to slide for some reason, and you ended up
yeah,
going offensive line at that first pick, then as you're coming here at 18, that's a much better value for Justin Herbert.
yeah, then you got options. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. Now, right after us, after the Dolphins, at 19 is the Raiders' second first-round pick.
Yep. So I've got him going with a corner. The buzz is that Mike Mayock really likes Clemson players and that A.J. Terrell is someone that they're really looking at strongly. If you watch the national championship game, A.J. Terrell got toasted all game long. So it kind of leaves a bad impression. But prior to that, he was putting together a really great season, and he was great the season before. So really good player, but yeah, bad last impression.
What have you done for me lately, kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you take from him? You think he's better than he showed in the championship game?
Yeah, I definitely do. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that he chose the worst possible time to have his worst game that I've ever seen him have. But
Yeah.
he's still a very good player.
Sometimes that puts a chip on somebody's shoulder and they prove themselves as they go,
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And he's battle tested. Clemson played against top-notch receivers all year long, and he did great. But LSU has had some stud receivers, and they showed up on him.
yeah. So now we're at 20, and this is Jacksonville's second pick. Who did they get this pick from?
Who did they trade this one from?
I can't remember. But sorry, you move on. Tell me about who you think they're going to get, and I'll look it up.
All right, sounds good. So, had him addressing the defensive line with that first pick. Just in the last year, they traded away Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye. So they're really, really bad at corner. And so I haven't taken Trayvon Diggs, corner from Alabama, Stephon Diggs' brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's his little brother. So Diggs is not a fit for every scheme. But if you have him in a press man situation, he's a big physical guy, and he's one of the best, if not the best press man corner in the draft. So you're not going to want him necessarily in zone or off man, but if he can get up and get physical with the receiver at the line of scrimmage, he's very good.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it was Jalen Ramsey that this came from.
Jalen Ramsey trade,
so it's the Rams pick that they're taking.
Gotcha.
Okay. Cool. And now we are moved on to the Eagles, who we kind of mentioned earlier, in desperate need of some help for Carson Wentz.
Yes. So I have him taking Justin Jefferson. As we just mentioned, A.J. Terrell. This is the guy that was making A.J. Terrell look bad at the national championship game. So he's got good size, quickness, route running. He's a guy who can play on the outside, but I think he'll be a dominant slot receiver. That's probably where you want to put him. Um, so I think that just putting as much talent around Carson Wentz as you can is a good idea. And they really need receiver. So I think this is a slam dunk pick for them.
Yeah, that's what's nice about, I mean, the depth in this draft, it seems like, for wide receivers, is even this late, you can still find somebody who's going to be pretty damn good. And probably not top tier like the first three, but I mean, you got him, you got with that T. Higgins. I think there's another guy from TCU that's supposed to be pretty good.
Jalen Rager.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of talent. I think the Eagles are in good shape, whether they want to move up, move down, or just stay there and take that receiver. So 22 to the Vikings.
Okay. So I have them taking Austin Jackson, offensive tackle from USC. Kind of similar to what we've been saying. This is a guy that needs work. He's more projection and upside than finished product right now, but he plays a premium position, and if you're willing to go through some growing pains, he could potentially be quite good. So I just have and he's a zone scheme fit, which is what the Vikings are running now with Kubiak, the old Denver Broncos system. So that's a good fit for him.
Yeah, I think where you said he's a project too, the Vikings are a pretty solid team overall. And I think if you are a project, I really feel like you have to go to a pretty good team to ever make it work. Because if, like, say the Dolphins or the Lions or the Browns, they just always get projects. By the time they're developed, everybody's so down on them, it kills their confidence. It kills the whole team momentum, because we want to get better, but you just took a guy that's not going to be good till 3 years max. You know what I mean? So,
so I think coaches have been fired and players have been cut and released because they're losing.
Yeah, it's not their guy anymore. Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of project players unless they're it's like the Pittsburgh Steelers or somebody of a high caliber that just turns them into athlete or like top tier athletes. So, so the Patriots, they lost Tom Brady. Sounds like they lost Rob Gronkowski, even though he's retired.
Yep.
A lot of their defense. I know Van Noy went to the Dolphins. A couple other people I can't remember, but so they might sound like they might need a lot right now. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, if it wasn't New England, I would say, oh, this team's tanking. Like they want Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. But I'm just not sure if this is the type of franchise that would do that. Just purposely throw a season away.
Right.
I will hate it if all of a sudden next year they have the number one pick in the draft and they're going to take Trevor Lawrence and dominate for the next decade again. So assuming they're not tanking, I think they need a quarterback. And at this point, Jordan Love is a good value. Similar to what we talked about with Herbert. He's got all the tools in the world. He's got great arm strength. He's got athleticism. If he can put it all together, he's going to be a very good player. He's just not currently a very good player. And so, put him in that system. There's things he can do that Tom Brady can't from an arm strength and mobility perspective. And I think that this could be a good fit.
I think this might be the only fit for Jordan Love. I don't see him progressing much in the NFL myself. I know that there's a lot of people that said he was doubted before, and that look where he's moved from a year ago to where he is now. But I don't know. I don't get too excited from everything I've seen of Jordan Love. They played LSU earlier last year, I believe, and he looked awful. I think that was like one of the 3 Utah State games I watched last year, and he didn't look good at all to me. So it's like you said with that one guy that had a bad time in the championship. That's Love leaves a sour taste in my mouth, because that's all I saw was how bad he looked against LSU.
Yeah, and I mean, he had a really bad year, and from the stuff that I've read of people trying to kind of justify it was that there was a coaching change, and he was having to adjust to that. But man, he did not play well. So we'll see. But if there is a system that could fit someone in and coach him up, I think this is a good fit.
Mm-hmm. And then, so now we're to the 24, the Saints.
Yes.
What do the Saints need?
I think they could use a little bit of defense. I think their 3 starting linebackers are all in the last year of their deal. And with one of those, Kiko Alonso coming off an injury, I don't know
Oh,
if he's
yeah.
going to be 100%. So I think a linebacker would be good. I wanted to put a receiver here, like a Jalen Rager, just for fun, because the Saints already have Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook. And, if you want to be the Chiefs of the NFC, there's some really good receivers in this draft. Just keep adding receivers. But at some point, they got to stop some people too. And I think the value is good here. Patrick Queen is a 3-down linebacker. I think he'll really help their defense out.
Patrick Queen from LSU. Okay. And the Vikings got another pick here at 25.
Yeah, so they jettisoned a lot of their corners during the offseason. So they've got a big need there. Jeff Gladney is one of my favorite corners in this draft from TCU. Great speed and cover skills, and he's a feisty player. He's a tackler. He comes up and is very physical. So I think that he'll fill a need there and fit what they're trying to do on defense.
Cool. And then rounding off my final pick of the draft for the Miami Dolphins at the first round, who are we going with?
I think you might like this one. Xavier McKinney, safety from, let me see if I get this right, Alabama?
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, okay. Yeah, this is one of my favorite players to watch in the draft. The way that I talked about Isaiah Simmons kind of being, that Swiss Army knife that you move around, I think McKinney's kind of a poor man's Isaiah Simmons, and I don't mean that as a knock. He's just not 4.3 speed like Isaiah Simmons and, fantastic size. But you can move him all around. He can line up in multiple positions. He's going to cover. He's going to defend the run. He's going to blitz and rush the quarterback. So very kind of similar to Minkah Fitzpatrick. And
that scares me a little bit, man.
Yeah. Or the Chargers, the way that they use Derwin James, or the Jets, the way that they use Jamal Adams. I think this is that guy in this draft after Isaiah Simmons, who's just a freak.
You don't think he's going to leave us after a year, do you?
Hopefully not.
I'm happy with what the Dolphins got.
Yeah, that connection between Bama and Miami is strong there. Nick Saban and the history there. So
Nick Saban actually came out and said today that anybody that passes on Tua is going to feel like Nick Saban did when he was with the Dolphins and he passed on Drew Brees twice.
Yep. And I agree.
Yeah, so you got to make that one happen, Miami, please. No Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Okay, Seahawks, number 27.
All right. This is another one of those picks that's kind of being rumored to be shopped, but that's because, and this is crazy, I had to look it up, the Seahawks have traded their first pick in the draft for like 6 straight years or 7 straight years.
Really?
They always trade their first round pick for some reason.
I did not know that.
It's just kind of a John Schneider thing. If they keep the pick, I think it makes sense to go with the best edge player that's available at this point. Don't know if they're going to bring back Jadeveon Clowney or not, but as of right now, they don't have him. So I got Caleb Von Chason from LSU.
I like this guy, man.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that he doesn't have the production numbers that you would expect from a first-round pick. He doesn't have the double-digit sacks and all that. But he's dealt with some injuries, but the physical profile is ridiculous. I mean, he's got tremendous speed, strength, size, everything that you
want. 28, the Baltimore Ravens.
I got them going with Kenneth Murray, linebacker from Oklahoma. The Ravens like their linebackers. He could be a 3-down guy, very explosive with a strong motor. I don't think he's as polished as Patrick Queen, who went a few picks before. So I think he's probably your second guy down the board. But if he puts it all together, he'll be very good. And even if he doesn't put it all together, he's got specific things that he does very well that will translate. He's very good at stopping the run.
Nice. Then Tennessee Titans, what do they need?
So they lost Jack Conklin, who was one of the best right tackles in the NFL this offseason.
To Cleveland, right?
Yeah, so I have them trying to replace him with Isaiah Wilson from Georgia. This is a guy that kind of been interesting to follow through the offseason. He was generally seen as like a round 3, round 4 guy in a lot of the mocks that I would see. and now all of a sudden he's getting buzz at being an end of round one guy. And it's that we talked about the potential, the upside, he's got the size and the traits. He just isn't a very good player yet.
Yeah.
So this is more projection, but they got a big hole there, and the rumor is that they really like this guy.
Nice. And what's the status on Derrick Henry? Is he talking about holding out or anything?
I haven't heard anything about a holdout. I believe he signed his franchise tender.
Okay.
So see where it goes from there.
Yeah, they're going to need to figure out that offensive line, or else Tannehill under pressure doesn't know what to do. I witnessed that for quite a few years.
Yeah, which is funny. Tannehill was my Justin Herbert comp. So there you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I've seen, the funniest comp that I've seen is somebody said that Joe Burrow is like Andy Dalton. I was
Really?
like, man, that's brutal.
Yeah. Out with the old, in with the new, Cincinnati.
Yeah, the Packers number 30, they're always a solid team. Their receivers didn't shine like they did last year, like that we expected them to last year. It was just kind of a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah.
Is that where they're heading?
I think so. I mean, if you're at the end of the first round here, the best value for them, I think, is going to be grab one of those receivers that would have been drafted higher if not for such a strong class. Denzel Mims is the guy that I have him taking. He's someone that if the teams in the early teens miss out on the receiver they want, they could very well trade back and target this guy. He's very good. Size, speed, hands. Put him in a vertical offense. He makes big plays downfield. He didn't run a real nuanced route tree at Baylor, so that was kind of the big knock on him. And then he showed up at the Senior Bowl, and no one could guard him. Like he lit it up in the Senior Bowl practices, so he may actually be a better route runner than people realized. They just didn't ask him to do it in college. So, yeah, he's probably my favorite receiver in the class outside of the big three. Him and Justin Jefferson are right there for me as like the top five guys.
Okay. See, I was really high on T. Higgins myself. I thought he would be a little bit higher.
Yeah, and I put Jalen Reagor over T. Higgins as well, but then I would probably slot Higgins in there. But I also really like Laviska Shenault if he's healthy from Colorado.
Where's he from?
Colorado. I think he'd be a hands down a first round pick, but had a lot of injury issues in college, and then right after the combine, he ran a really slow time for what was expected of him, and then it was announced he had a core muscle injury and had to have surgery.
That was a fun name. What was it?
Laviska Shenault.
Laviska Shenault. Okay. I'll be looking for him probably day 2, huh?
Yeah, so I think he probably ends up going in the second round, but he would have been right in that group of the big three had he not had a bad combine and had so many injuries.
Cool. We're winding down. We're coming down to the last two of our Super Bowl teams. 31 is the 49ers. The 31 49ers. Who you got there?
Yeah. Again, this is a pick that will most likely be traded. The 49ers have 2 first-rounders, but then they don't pick again to the 5th round. They don't have any seconds, thirds, or fourths. So it's kind of been known that they're shopping one of their first-rounders to try to get some more picks later in the draft. It looks like they might want a receiver with that first pick, so this one I think could go. But a guy that if they stay here or if a team is trading up into the round that could be targeted is Cesar Ruiz, interior offensive line for Michigan. He's been their starting center. He's kind of like the Marquise Pouncey is the comp that I put. He's the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. So I think that this is around the range that you would expect him to come off the board, whether it's the 49ers or someone else.
Yeah, I actually heard the Niners were shopping Tevin Coleman and a few other guys as well.
Yeah.
To try and build up some picks. But
yeah, I think Hart and Marquise Goodwin, their receiver, they've got a lot of guys on the block.
It's funny, just a couple years ago when we did our first mock draft with you, it was the year that Trubisky went number 1 overall. You remember that? And the Niners got a bunch of picks from the Bears just for trading down to one spot, and they got the guy that they wanted anyways.
Yeah.
And it was like that was kind of the starting of Lynch, where you saw like maybe this guy knows what he's doing, and it's like 2 years later they're in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, and they just have so much talent. So yeah, I'm starting to put the Niners in that. They're the draft tier of they know what they're doing. They make the best out of their players. Like the Niners are going to be scary for a while, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so too. And I liked the move as much as I like Buckner getting a really premium pick for him, knowing that you have a strength at that position. I really think that was smart. And, if they end up being able to move this pick and get some more picks, I think John Lynch knows what he's doing in those second, third, and fourth rounds.
Yeah, which I never would have picked him to be the guy that knows what he's doing. I mean, he's
Yeah,
he's a smart football player, but
yeah,
he had the craziness in him. So I always thought
he did. Yeah,
the guys with the craziness aren't always there thinking sensibly.
yeah. His
So
style of play, he took a lot of blows to the head, but he seems to still know what he's doing.
for sure. And then our Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, finishing off the draft at the first round at 32.
Yeah. So this is an interesting pick because 20 of their 22 starters from the Super Bowl are coming back. So most of their team is still intact from what just won the Super Bowl.
Wow.
So you're trying to look like, well, where do they need help? Where do they get better? There's some stuff on defense that I think they could definitely get better. That wasn't their strength, but it kind of started coming together late in the season and in the playoffs. But just looking at that offense, the only thing that was really missing, I think, was the running back position. Their leading rusher had 498 yards for the season. They still won the Super Bowl. It didn't hurt them, but being able to add a player like DeAndre Swift from Georgia just makes that offense all the more potent. And him being that dual threat that's just as dangerous in the passing game as he is as a running back fits what they do.
Now, are you number one DeAndre Swift in the running back class? Is that who you would take?
I think so. I like Jonathan Taylor. I like Dobbins from Ohio State, and I like Akers, but I think Swift is probably the top guy.
Cool. Now we're done with the mock. Let me ask a few questions that I got lined up. Zach Moss, is there any word about where he might be going? Anybody interested?
Yeah, so what's interesting, if you follow Pro Football Focus, that's an analytics group, they rank Moss as the best running back in this draft. And it's based on he had a ridiculously high elusive rating, being able to make people miss tackles on him. And that is their signature stat for running backs, being able to predict which college running backs will be good in the pros. If you can make people miss, if you can break tackles, that translates. So there's that. I know he's had some health issues, had some surgery. I think he's probably a second to third round guy. I don't think he'll be the first round.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that. I was just kind of wondering where he would be in the ranks of everybody. After everybody we just went over, who? Oh, do you need a break?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Said I help her.
Nice, I love it. Who do you think out of everybody that you just mentioned for this first round mock that was the best value?
So, we kind of talked about it, but I think getting Tua at 5, who I think if he's healthy is the best quarterback, that's great value. The story was tank for Tua all season, and if Miami ends up being able to get him at 5 without having to trade up, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to have to trade up, though. I think that there's going to be enough smoke, saying, oh, well, San Diego's trying to do this or this team is trying to do this. So, yeah, sounds like we might have to trade a few draft picks, but that's okay. Worst value, who do you think did the worst in this first round?
Let's go right to the pick behind that, and it's the Chargers taking Herbert at 6. Again, I think he's a guy that should go in the teens or the 20s, and he's pushed up because he's a quarterback, and there's no one else better in this class after the first 2 are gone. So not the move I would personally make, but as a Bronco fan, it's a move I hope that they make.
Yeah, for sure. Most likely trade. I know you mentioned the Seahawks trade their first round every year. The Niners are likely going to. I mean, the Lions could trade back. Which would you lock in the most? Probably
the one that seems like it has the most steam as far as the teams involved is Cleveland trading their pick to Denver. Denver moving up to 10, trying to get whoever their pick a receiver is. Ruggs had been the rumor, And then just this last week, reports came out that they're targeting Judy, that they're trying to trade up for Jerry Judy instead.
Oh, okay.
But again, the week before the draft, what's real, what's smoke?
Right.
But they have been talking with each other. And I think that Cleveland, it's depending on how the board falls because they want to tackle. Reportedly, they really like Ezra Cleveland, who's the Boise State offensive tackle, blew up the combine.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that hardly anyone has him as a first rounder. He's generally like a second to third round guy.
Yeah.
He's got great athletic profile, and he's actually a really good technician, but he needs to get a lot stronger. So like he needs a year in an NFL weight program before I would trust him starting. So I still wouldn't take him at 10 or 15, but there is a rumor that that's the guy that Cleveland really, really likes.
Okay. I got you. What's a like really long shot trade that you like that you've heard a little bit of and you think there's probably some truth to it?
The New England Patriots moving all the way up for Tua.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of draft assets this year, and they don't have a lot of talent because they've let it all go away. But I don't doubt that they'll try, especially if Tua slides at all for any reason.
Right.
So it's going to be, they'd have to give up a lot. I think it'll consist of giving up a first rounder next year and maybe the year after that. But maybe they're crazy enough to do it.
Yeah. And do you have any current NFL players who might be on the move tomorrow or Thursday? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think Trent Williams probably gets traded from the Redskins, and he could go to the Browns. Now that Gronk is in Tampa Bay, I think there's a very high probability that O.J. Howard gets moved. They've already got Cameron Brate there and Gronk. I think Howard might have been on the trade block already, but now with Gronk, I think he's definitely on the trade block. I know the Colts are shopping Malik Hooker, their safety. So I think those are a few of the highly probable players.
And I heard Leonard Fournette as well, I believe.
His is a little tougher because there's not a great premium for running backs, and running backs who make a lot of money. So he's a little harder to move.
Yeah.
Some of the other guys, but he definitely is being shopped. Just a matter of what teams are willing to give up for him.
Cool, man. Well, this has been another successful year. We're adding on this year, if you can make it, as soon as the first round draft is over Thursday night. Yeah. We're going to try and get into the studio again and record probably Friday morning or something like that.
Yeah, sounds good.
We'll do a follow-up of all the picks you made, who we think did the best, who we think struggled, and then what's left on the draft board to look forward to throughout the weekend. So thanks again, Mike. I always appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, brother. I'll get this edited, and we will be back Friday afternoon.
Great. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.